Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's been a hot minute. Today I'm going to be tier ranking every book I read in 2022. It's currently 3rd of January 2023. So I'm going to be using my laptop for this ranking process. Considering the fact that I'm a student and I do not have money to purchase 21 books, I participated in piracy, online piracy to be precise. These books were from the library, so we're going to imagine that I'm holding the stack of books now. 21 books would be like big. So these are all the books I read in 2022. But the rankings for this book are, wouldn't recommend it to my worst enemy. Like, I care about them too much to recommend this book for them, and that's saying a lot considering the fact that they're my worst enemy. The next tier is, I talk about it because I hated it. Like, it's so bad I have to talk about it, okay? It was a book. Like, it was a book. It's like 2-3 stars. The next is enjoyable but forgettable. Like, you did what you had to do, you did it well, but now I can't remember what you were about. The next is my jaw is dropped. Like, this book was actually like, so we're talking 4 to 4.9 star books. And then the next tier is, I would actually sell my soul to relive the experience of reading this book for the first time. The first book I read this year was Before I Met You, and I'm not gonna lie, it was a good book. Lisa Joy did her thing once again. It was a great book. I don't know, am I supposed to tell you guys the story? I really like Lisa Joy's books. Her books, this one was kind of like a deviation from what she normally writes. She kind of writes like thrillers, yes, I think. It was a good story, but kind of forgettable. Like, I cannot remember. I could not, when I first started this ranking, because I read this back in January, I could not remember what this book was about. I genuinely had to sit down and Google the story all over again. It was a book. It was enjoyable, but forgettable. On to the next. The next book was The Vanishing Half. Oh, I loved this book. Like, I don't know, black writers just have this spice. Nigerian writers, like, it's like Nigerian writers, black writers, others, okay, maybe like Middle Eastern writers, but like Nigerian writers, black writers. And Brit Bennett in this book is basically a story of two twin girls that are light skinned, and one of them chooses to live as a white passing woman and the other doesn't, and it kind of like brings their stories together. And it was a beautiful book. That's what I can say. The next book I read was Wilder Girls. It was a great book, and I'm kind of torn between like my jaw is dropped and enjoyable but forgettable, but I'm going to go with enjoyable but forgettable. The fan art of this book slaps though. I downloaded this because I was going through a phase. Okay, not really a phase, but like I was obsessed with literature. It was enjoyable but forgettable. That's all I can say. The next book I read was Kingdom of the Wicked. It was a book. Kingdom of the Coast. It was a book. I read it because like the cover, I thought it was going to be fantasy, like high fantasy, but it was just a Wattpad book. Basically, it's Wattpad grade storytelling. A girl in Italy. I can't even remember what it was about. I feel like I probably read it because like the spice was spicing, and it made me read book 2. No, there wasn't spice. They were just teasing us for the whole thing. So I read book 2 because I was hoping there would be spice, but there wasn't. Anyway, the next book I read was Then She Was Gone. My jaw was dropped when I read this. It was on the floor. Basically, this girl gets kidnapped. I don't know, am I supposed to tell you this? Spoilers? Spoiler alert. She gets kidnapped by her. Should I say it? Okay, I'm not going to spoil it, but she gets kidnapped. They spend years looking for her. they can't find her, and suddenly they come across a child that looks exactly like her offspring should look, basically. And Lisa Jewell is an artist. She's a master at what she does. That's all I can say. I was thrilled because it is in fact a thriller. The next book I read was American Gods. Like, I honestly do not know where to put this book because it's top rated. It's really top rated, but like, I heard about this show, so I was like, okay, I'm going to read the book, then try to watch the show. And there was plots, but no, there was no plots. That's what I'm going to say. There was no plots, and the main character was very blah. He had potential, but he was very blah. I'm not gonna lie. The other characters were more interesting than the main character. He was basically just like, and I'm going to put it like, I would have put it in my joyous joke because there were a lot of moments that shocked me. But then, and it wasn't really forgettable because I remember a lot of things, but there were just a lot of events. And the ending was, it was a book. I'll give it like 3.5 stars. Yeah. The next book was Verity by Colleen Hoover. I have not read any of her books apart from this, but I have heard that she has a character called Lily Bloom Rose who is a florist and runs a flower shop, and that screams Wattpad to me. Verity was a cool book. It was enjoyable, but it's not something that I would recommend to people. And there were the book kind of left me with a lot of questions, like it did to many other people. And recently she released another chapter, like an epilogue kind of situation. And I don't know, most people are like it's like a cash grab, but anyway, because the chapter didn't really reveal anything, so what was the point of the chapter? Enjoyable, but forgettable. The next book I read was The Secret Lives of Baba Shaggy's wives. Baba Shaggy has 5 wives, but there's a secret in the house. It's a Nigerian book, and like Nigerian authors have this sarcastic way of writing. I don't know how to describe it. There's like sarcasm and satire all mixed together, like you're making jollof rice or something with the perfect blend of spices. They do it well. Chinua Achebe also does it so well. This book, I would sell my soul to experience reading this book again for the first time because it was just that good. Like, I felt like I was watching a movie, like all those Nigerian series. And I have to check if there's a movie adaptation. Is there? The next book I did read was Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. So all my life, I've been surrounded by Francine Rivers fangirls. And I was like, oh, I'm not like other girls. I'm not going to read her book because I'm not like other girls. But I read the book after so many years of it being recommended to me, and I would sell my soul to read it again for the first time because it was just that good. So it's a Christian book. I'm Christian. Thank you for asking. It's a Christian book. It's based on the story of Hosea in the Bible, how God asked him to marry a prostitute and she kept going back to prostituting, and Hosea had no choice but to keep going back because she was his true love. This book taught me a lot about love. I would actually sell my soul to experience reading it again for the first time. On to the next, Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. I downloaded it because of the cover, and I also saw the name Agatha Christie. You know the author is popular when their name is larger than the title of the book. This is actually my first Agatha Christie book. I am ashamed to admit because it's like a classic for people that read crime thrillers, which is one of my favorite categories. Anyway, it was a good book. It was a great book. My jaw was dropped in some situations. Sometimes I kind of feel like it's forgettable, but my jaw is dropped. The next was The Inheritance Games. I also thought this was going to be high fantasy or sci-fi, like The Hunger Games or Divergence. Because The Inheritance Games come to realize it's just a Wattpad insert. Personally, like, no hate to the author, but it was giving Wattpad plots. It was giving Wattpad, and I read it. I ate it up. I had 3 book boyfriends come out of this, which is a good thing. There's a book 3, probably 4, but I really don't care. I just read book 1 and 2. I'm not willing to put myself through this again. Like, it was a good book, but it was a book. The next thing I read was Normal People. When I tell you I hated this book, to be honest, I've never read a book where I felt obligated to finish it, but this book, I was like, legit, I could have skipped 50 pages and nothing would have developed. I wouldn't have missed out on anything. I don't understand how this book is so highly rated, and there's even a movie about it. I should probably go and watch the movie. I've heard it's better than whatever the hell this is. Sally Rooney, count your days, because what is this? I talk about it because I despised it. Hate is a strong word. Despise. The next book I read was A Song of Ice and Fire, or The World of Ice and Fire. I read it. It was a book. I read it because House of the Dragon was coming out, and I wanted to, be completely immersed in the world. I like to read the book and then watch the series, so I finished reading it and then the series started coming out, and I was like making side-by-side comparisons. The next book was The Silent Patient, already in my library, but then I joined this book club in my school, and this was the very first book we chose, a psychological thriller, The Silent Patient. It was a good book. My jaw was dropped. But then when we sat down to analyze it in the book club, I realized that there were a lot of plot holes and things that just weren't really explained. So, I don't know. The next was The Night Circus. I would not recommend this to my worst enemy. When I read the blog for this book, I was like, oh, okay, I'm going on an adventure. There's going to be magic fighting, a high, like, I was expecting like sword fighting page 1, and then it was just like a slow decline, and I had to finish it because I had already started. And then like the fan art was good. They're like, the circus is shrouded in mystery, blah 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 blah. I walk through the circus, I feel a feeling of feels. 2 main characters supposed to be fighting each other, funny. Like, it's just very slow paced. Like, this book should have been 500 pages EPUB max. Like, and like the boundaries of the magic isn't really explained. Everybody's magic is different. They didn't really explain how it works. There's no the world building, and there's a lot to unpack in this book. Next thing I read was Waking Up with the Duke. It was a book. That's all I can say. I read this because I watched Lady Chatterley's Lover. If you know, you know. And I was like, oh, I want to read more books like this. And Waking Up with the Duke was what came up. I read it. The spice was spicing, but it was kind of weird. I'm not gonna lie. The next was The Unhoneymooners. It was enjoyable but forgettable. It was like kind of enemies to lovers. But the reason why they were enemies wasn't really giving. Your enemies because he gave you a weird look. Do you know how many people have looked at me weird? At that point, I might as well be beefing with the whole world. It's like there's a checklist: enemies to lovers, forced proximity, pessimistic main character. A lot of things were checked in this book. I read it for the book club. It was enjoyable but forgettable. The next thing I read was the Final Girl Support Group, and my jaw was dropped. Basically, like in slasher movies, someone, usually a girl, always survives the mentally deranged man that is chasing people around with a hammer or a knife. So it's basically about the girls that survived those slasher movies, and like it's based on slasher movies from like the 70s to the 90s. So like the author picked out characters from this book. What was the name of Grady Hendrix? Yeah. But like the villain that was going after these girls didn't really make a lot of sense in the end for me. They took me on a lot of chases, but at the end of the day, it was like, oh, it's him. basically. Things have gotten worse since we last spoke is the final book I read. I actually just read it like 2 or 3 days ago. My jaw is dropped because people are mentally ill, and true, things got worse since they last spoke because it is not okay. I don't know, they were both edging each other to see, and this person was trying to see how far this person could go, but then this person went too far and scared this other person off. It was a strange situation. These are the books I read in 2022. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want more book tier rankings like this, let me know. If you want book reviews, let me know, because I think I'm something of a reader, if you ask me. I read, so yeah, let me recommend something. I feel like Emma Chamberlain, that one video that she was like, reading slaps. So yeah, read a book today. Right now I'm reading Salem's Lots book at the end of the year for tier ranking the books I read in 2023. I actually read 22 books in 2022, but I didn't add the last one. I didn't really feel ready. This year I have a goal of 23 books, and next year it will be 24 books. I'm just wondering what I'm going to do in the year 2086. How I'm going to read 86 books at the age of 85. I just want to like deck the whole thing with stickers. Like, I don't want to see an inch of laptop whenever I look at this thing. I just want to see stickers.